Doug McDermott almost pulled off a miracle in the fourth quarter. Coming into this game, I thought that we needed some bench production to be able to win a game when you're on the second night of a back-to-back, traveling into Denver, into altitude. And well, that bench help came a little too late. It came in kind of an unconventional manner. Doug McDermott not playing the entire game, getting thrown in there in the fourth quarter and plays almost the whole fourth quarter and hits 5 threes for 15 points. At the end of the third quarter, when the Nuggets hit four straight threes, including that full court bomb by Jokic, I was just like, I'm kind of glad that happened because it means the Kings are probably going to sit their starters in the fourth quarter and we're not going to have any of this fake comeback because in the third quarter, the Kings kind of mounted a little bit of a fake comeback there for a bit. And so it was one of those moments where I'm like, either I want us to get back into this game or I want the Nuggets to blow us out so we don't end up playing De'Aaron Fox 40 minutes in a loss. But even though the Nuggets did end the third quarter the way they did, hitting four straight threes, hitting a full court bomb, going up 25, somehow the Kings still managed to go on another fake comeback and play De'Aaron Fox 40 minutes and Sabonis 39 and DeRozan 37. So, from that aspect, not great. But from a competitive standpoint, I think what the Kings have shown under Doug Christie is they're always going to fight back. And when you have Doug Christie as your head coach, you're probably never going to give up. So that's the thing about this team. They battled back earlier in the season against Denver, actually, and lost by one. But now they do it battling back from 25 down and making it actually possible in the end. But the problem is the Nuggets still had Jokic. And so as on fire as the Kings were, as on fire as Doug McDermott was, Jokic just kept chipping in a couple points every possession. It made it, really hard by the end to completely make that comeback. I thought coming into this game, it was a scheduled loss. Didn't think the Kings had much of a chance because they wouldn't have much energy coming into this game. And I mean, that's pretty much exactly what happened because early on, they stayed in it in that first quarter, but they couldn't get any stops. I think at one point it was 15-15. The offense was hitting shots. We were knocking down mid-range shots. DeMar was, Fox got in there. Sabonis was being aggressive offensively, but the problem was just the defensive end. I feel like this was just, the worst case scenario, very much a schedule loss because playing the Nuggets is kind of the worst team to play when you're on the second night of a back-to-back, when you're coming in and you have to play against a team that loves to get out on the fast break and that you have to be so locked in against to defend against their scoring in the paint. And so that's really what killed the Kings. They weren't able to keep the Nuggets out of the paint, and they were getting back cut to death. DeRozan especially was really poor defensively. The Kings were just getting out rebounded early on, like the first quarter and the first half. The Nuggets almost had as many offensive rebounds as the Kings did defensive rebounds. And that's not really a winning formula. And the Kings were just bad at getting between their man and the rim. There were just too many times where guys were catching the ball inside with the defender on their backside and just being able to go up straight to the rim. And so while the starters before the first substitutions kept this game close, we needed big performances off of the bench. And the first subs were Keon and Devin. And I thought, these are good subs. We bring guys in that can make something happen energy-wise. We're not bringing in a Kevin Herter. But then Devin Carter only played 3 minutes. And, I'm not saying he was good in those 3 minutes because he wasn't. But my problem is if you're not going to play him now, if you're not going to play him when you're down 25 at the end of the third quarter, then when are you going to play him? When are you going to get this guy reps? I felt like this is a game where you have nothing to lose, so why not just play Devin Carter more minutes? But, he didn't play well. He airballed his one three-pointer, and that's just offensively, that's a place he just has to get better. He needs a quicker release because guys are just able to close on him way too quickly. But for a bit there in the first quarter, the game really slowed to a crawl, and it was because the Nuggets were getting inside so much, so they were also getting the free throw line. On the other end, the Kings got to the free throw line a bit, so both teams just getting to the free throw line, which maybe that's not the worst thing in this scenario for the Kings when they are the team that's going to be more tired. You slow the game down a little bit, but obviously the Kings want to play fast. But the Nuggets just had such a big advantage when it came to playing fast. The Kings were not matching up well in transition at all. Either they were just getting beat down the court and then a pass would find the guy, or they just weren't taking ball. And so many times the defense just looked out of sorts, and whoever had the ball, Jamal Murray or whoever, was just driving straight down the lane and getting inside super easily. And then when the Kings tried to push, there was a moment where Sabonis got the ball in transition in the middle of the floor. He drives, gets to the middle of the floor against Jokic, and there are 3 guys spaced out around him, and nobody moves. And he just stood there in the middle, just looking around. Like, somebody has to move, because he's not going to just run straight at Jokic, which he tried a few times and missed. And so it was a lot of low energy plays, both offensively, defensively. I did like Sabonis's aggressiveness though, even though he did miss quite a lot of shots around the rim. And the Kings as a whole just missed a lot of shots around the rim. But I like that Sabonis did come out and attempt 21 shots. It definitely was not his best game, but I liked his aggressiveness because I felt like without him trying to make things happen and take a lot of the shots that he did, it felt like we were going to end up with worse shots because the offense didn't have the same energy that it needs to have to really be successful. There was also a nice moment in the first quarter where Sabonis got called for a foul when there was 0 contact made and Westbrook just missed the layup. And then, the Kings challenge, it's successful. But then it gets called on Monk, who just ever so lightly puts his hand on Westbrook's back. Like, clearly not a foul. But, of course, they call it. But really, it was a win for the Kings in terms of that challenge. Because you're just trying to keep Sabonis out of foul trouble, really. But the Nuggets, they got to the line a lot, and they missed a lot. They were 21 for 31 from the free throw line. So that was kind of one of the things that kept the Kings kind of in this game. But the Kings allowed 40 points in that first quarter, and they scored 31 themselves, but they just couldn't handle the cutting of the Nuggets. They tried to play Jokic really straight up with Sabonis, and, they tried to make others or take others away and just say, okay, Jokic, go beat us, and try to go one-on-one with Sabonis, because obviously Sabonis is a big body. He can make him work for that. And yet Jokic was still finding so many cutters. And that was just poor focus from the Kings' interior defense. And Jokic could definitely score one-on-one against Sabonis, but it was kind of, you have to choose one. You either have to make Jokic score inside, or you have to take everyone else away. And they did neither. And so Jokic ends up with an insane stat line of 35, 22 rebounds, 17 assists. And then when Sabonis went out of the game towards the end of the first quarter, started the second quarter, the offense was horrible, and these were non-Jokic minutes as well. Fox had a couple of bad turnovers, one where he just dribbles it off his foot, and another where he's trying to push it in transition, and it's just a bad pass to Keon. And the Kings did that a lot, because I think in the second quarter especially, they really tried to focus on pushing the tempo, but it was just completely out of control trying to push the tempo. It was one-handed passes, it was cross-court passes, and this was the second and the third quarter, really. It was Sabonis throwing a behind-the-back pass after he gets a rebound, and so there were just so many of these really bad turnovers. And so it was just the Kings not being sharp and making bad decisions. Instead of pushing the pace by pushing the ball up the floor themselves with the dribble, or pushing it up the side of the floor that they're on with a pass, they were just trying to chuck it to whoever was furthest down the court, and that did not go well at all. And then that group to start the second quarter, we had Trey Lyles at the 5, which is definitely the right move. But that group with Fox, DeRozan, Lyles, Kevin Huerter, and who else was it? I think Keegan, right? That group, they lost the non-Jokic minutes. And that's just been a big problem for the Kings this season, is those groups. And it shouldn't be as big of a problem as it is when you have a guy like Fox, and when you have a guy like DeRozan, But it has been a big problem because I feel like that group just has no identity, like at all. They don't really know how they want to play. Every time Kevin Huerter is out there, he's just doing something really stupid. He immediately missed a three, got beat in transition by Peyton Watson and just fouled him. So definitely wouldn't be mad at getting a look at Doug McDermott in those Kevin Huerter minutes. I mean, that's not even an overreaction from this game. That's just Doug McDermott shooting over 40% from three this season and Kevin Huerter not shooting that well. But also Kevin Huerter trying to make other things happen and that not going well. And so I feel like that group, the bench group, when Sabonis is out, it just needs an identity of some sort. And I understand that you want to keep Monk and Sabonis paired. But at the same time, I don't think Fox and DeRozan is the right pairing when Sabonis is off the court. I don't think they really play off each other very well. And I honestly would rather pair Monk with Fox. But then the problem is you have DeRozan with Sabonis. I don't know. There's really no good answer because I think the thing is you want to pair Fox and Monk. You want to pair one of them with Sabonis. But you also want to pair them together because I think when they're together, the identity is just run, run, run. When you have Fox and Monk with Sabonis, one of them with Sabonis, then your identity can be around the pick and roll game with those guys. And so maybe you could create a pick and roll game around DeMar and Sabonis, but right now the partnership between Fox and DeMar offensively doesn't really seem like it goes all that well, while also being a bad group defensively. I think one thing that could just help and solve all of the problems is just getting someone who can play the five, who can either space the floor and set screens, or who can defend and set screens and be a lob threat. I really think like everything can kind of be, not everything, but that group can be made a lot better if you really have a viable five who can set screens and roll to the rim and be a lob threat, or really just be an offensive threat, or just really commit to defense and be okay with maybe a little inefficiency offensively. I just think you need some type of big man that Fox can kind of play off of in those moments. Alex Len is not that guy, so you have to go with Trey Lyles at the five. Then you kind of have to make your identity just run, 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 and shoot threes. But that group just hasn't been very good at shooting threes, and obviously Kevin Huerter's a big part of that. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the solution is Doug McDermott, and he just comes in and shoots really well. I don't know, but you just have to find a way to not get beat super badly in those minutes. Because what happened was you had Trey Lyles kind of chuck up a bad three. Then he didn't find Keegan, who was wide open for three. DeMar also didn't find Keegan, who was wide open from three. There was just some bad decision making and some hesitation offensively in kind of where the ball was going. And that group started 0 for 7 as Keegan got blocked. But then he recovered, went back up, and 1 for 8 to start in non-Jokic minutes. And so non-Jokic minutes when you're playing the Nuggets are the key part of the game, and the Kings lost them really badly. But then in the second half, won them by a zillion. And so, we'll get to that, but hopefully they can take something from what happened in the second half and apply it to these units without Sabonis, because it was really successful in the second half. But the Kings just started getting killed on the glass in that second quarter. And I feel like lately Monk has just taken over what Fox used to do. And when the other team gets a little momentum or they get a basket, then he just tries to push it all the way down the court with zero help into 2-3 defenders in the paint and chuck up a bad shot or turn it over. He's been doing that lately quite a bit. But it got sloppy, like I said. Keon was having a pretty tough time guarding Westbrook, who was just, he's so quick and strong, and he could just go through Keon pretty easily to get to the rim. Kings started kind of chucking some bad threes, not getting back in transition. DeMar provided a little bit of offense, but that was really it. And so the Kings ended up getting outscored 34-21, and so they were down by 22 going into halftime. And so the start of the third quarter was where the first fake comeback started. And this was just a funny game because it was multiple fake comebacks in the same game. But you started with a 7-0 run. Keegan hit a three, forced a turnover. DeMar hit a midi. Sabonis got an offensive rebound and hit a hook. Then Keegan hit another three off a DHO. And then he almost hit another one after Jamal Murray just threw the ball out of bounds. Went in and out. That would have cut it to 10. But then he did hit even another one after that. So Keegan Murray came alive from the three-point line. I mean, that was the only way we were ever going to get back into the game, is if someone woke up from the three-point line. And the Kings were down 12. And Sabonis throws a hit-ahead pass to Keegan. He gets it inside, and then he just wasn't strong with the ball, and he turned it over. Then Monk tried to chuck a cross-court pass on it in his own end, turns it over. Then Sabonis gets a rebound and tries to throw a behind-the-back pass, reminding me of Kendrick Perkins, turns it over. So we had a nice little run there, and then everything collapsed, just really bad turnovers. And that Sabonis turnover was so bad, and I would have been so irritated if I actually thought we had a chance at that point in the game. But I had kind of given up on this game at halftime and wasn't truly believing in the comeback at that point. So it was just kind of funny. And then you just had Fox missing a layup and the Nuggets hitting their last 4 threes of the quarter. And so at that point, I'm just like, yeah, let's get out of here. Let's get the starters out of this game. One of the threes, Sabonis was just kind of jogging back, and then the ball went to the corner where he had to contest, and he just looked exhausted trying to get to the corner. So the team just looked gassed. And then Jokic hits that shot after Fox had hit a three to cut it to 22, and then Jokic hits that shot. And so I was hoping to see a lot of Devin Carter minutes in the fourth quarter, and we got 0. Fox and Keegan were still in there. Doug Christie still had hope, and rightfully so, I guess. In my mid-season player reviews, there wasn't a lot to say about Doug McDermott. The one thing I did say was he's good for a fun moment, like against Utah, where he comes in and it goes 6 for 6 from 3. And he just had another one of those moments where Jokic is out at that point. The Kings got stops. I think the Nuggets just got a little lazy. They weren't trying to attack the rim. We got some misses. Doug McDermott knocking down threes. Lyles hits a couple of threes, and the Kings went on a 14-0 run to start that quarter. And they had a few chances to even hit a few more big ones, but they couldn't quite hit the one that would have made me believe quite yet. I think Fox might have hit a couple, but then Jokic came back in, and we have Lyles at center, and he's valiantly trying to battle with Jokic, but that's tough. And so once he came back in, I was like, yeah, all right, now it's over. And we put Sabonis back in, but I'm like, yeah, okay, now they're just gonna blow us out again, another fake comeback. But then Doug McDermott just kept hitting threes, and the threes that he was hitting were just so ridiculous. He was getting the ball out of his hands quicker than I've ever seen, quicker than I see Steph Curry do, quicker than Klay Thompson. Like, I don't know how he gets it out so quickly. Man, he was just knocking them all down, and everyone knew where the ball was going, and they still couldn't stop him for a little bit. Sabonis did commit 2 fouls where he was like trying to make something happen, one on an offensive rebound, one just trying to poke the ball loose on the perimeter, and they sent the Nuggets to the line because we had gotten into foul trouble. And so, it's rough to give him free throws, but at the same time, it was kind of one of those moments where you had to make something happen and, try to come up with a steal or an offensive rebound to really win this game, because despite all those crazy threes and how much the Kings were outscoring the Nuggets, it required the Kings to be perfect, because Jokic just came in the game and scored like 6 points in a row for the Nuggets. And so we're going down and we're trading threes for twos. But when you come in with a 25-point deficit, all it requires is Jokic to just score a few points at the end, and that makes it almost impossible. Thought there was a little too much single coverage on Jokic towards the end, but this was always super unlikely. I mean, I just like the fight that Kings showed, to be honest. I didn't come in expecting a win. At no point during the comeback did I ever expect a win. I just like that the Kings didn't give up, and they did fight back and try to make this a game. Going through some of the individuals, Sabonis took 21 shots. That's not normally something you see him do. He was 10 for 21, 23 points, 19 rebounds, 8 assists, had 4 turnovers, some of them very sloppy. 1 for 4 from 3. Really down game from 3 for him. But I liked the shots he was taking. He was confident in his little, one-handers from the mid-range. He was confident taking those mid-rangers, taking those threes, and I think he's proven that he's efficient enough to have games where he's taking this many shots and trying to be the offense himself and trying to be more of a scorer. And while it wasn't the most efficient game for him, I mean, it's still 10 for 21. And he missed a lot of layups. So it really wasn't the jumpers that were the inefficient part of his game. It was really the finishing around the rim, which usually isn't a problem for him. But obviously he struggled to defend Jokic. Had a couple of nice moments, but that, it's a tough matchup when you're just going single coverage. And then you add Fox playing 40 minutes. I mean, that's rough. Why are you making him play 40 minutes? But he went 7 for 24, 3 for 10 from 3, 17.6 assists, only a couple turnovers, and I think those were both in the first quarter, so he tightened it up after that. But he continues to have some down offensive games here. And, obviously we all know about what's going on with his finger, how he has the injured finger on his shooting hand, but also, like, he dropped 60 when the exact same thing was going on. So I'm like, has it gotten worse, or is this just him being in a kind of normal down spell? It's not like we've never seen him go through some shooting struggles, obviously. And so it's impossible to know how much it's really affecting him. And some people I know want to just sit him. I know towards the beginning of the season, he said he would need to sit out for a month to get it fully right. And I just doubt that's really an option for him unless it becomes really bad. And so if he's not sitting out, that means he's good enough to play. And that means he needs to, be able to score at some point. And so it's not something I'm super worried about yet because, like I said, he's gone through down spells scoring wise before. And so I expect him to come out of it fairly soon. If he doesn't, then maybe you start getting a little worried, in my opinion. Monk definitely had a bit of a rough one when it came to scoring. He ended with 15 points and 7 assists. Went 0 for 4 from 3, 5 for 13 from the field. So obviously a very inefficient game for the Kings, but they were able to get a lot of offensive rebounds. I mentioned them not being good rebounding the ball defensively, but they did win the offensive rebounding battle 17 to 15. And so they had quite a bit of inefficiency from their main guys in Monk and Fox and even Sabonis, but got a ton of offensive rebounds, 6 for Sabonis, 5 for Keegan. Keon got in there for 2, and Keon had a very good game when it came to the hustle plays, but those offensive rebounds were really what kept the Kings alive. And also DeMar. DeMar was good scoring the ball, 9 for 16, and he got to the free throw line 8 times and hit 6, 24 points. So he had a solid game. Offensively, defensively, a very rough game. Getting back, not getting back in transition, those types of things. And then you have Keegan, who went only 4 for 10 from the field. Definitely was not a good game when it came to finishing around the rim for him. But he did spark that third quarter run through his three-point shooting, and it was those dribble handoffs between him and Sabonis. And so we like to see that. I mean, it was pretty poor defense from Denver, just letting him get open looks. But he hit 2 threes off of that dribble handoff. And so it was good to see that get going a bit. And then you have Keon, 21 minutes, had 6 points and 5 assists. He had one really nice play where the Kings moved the ball well. He pump fakes, gets his guy off the ground and drives to the rim for a nice layup. And his decision-making offensively was very, very good. And offensively, I mean, he was just making all the hustle plays. And that's exactly what we needed him to come in and do. Getting offensive rebounds and just getting into the fray. Just wasn't quite enough, though. Trey Lyles, 22 minutes. He was part of the big run in the fourth quarter, went 3 for 7 from 3, had 9 rebounds and 12 points. And it was good to see him start to hit the 3 because he was struggling for a bit. I think he went 1 for 1 last game, and now he goes 3 for 7 from 3. So that would be big if we could get some contributions out of him going forward. And then, of course, Doug McDermott, 5 for 6 from 3. At one point, I mean, the Nuggets were sending 2 guys at him when he didn't even have the ball. I mean, that was insane. And obviously we needed threes and we just kept trying to feed him. There was one play where we get the offensive rebound, and DeMar gets the ball, and before he probably even knows what he's doing, the Nuggets are sprinting at McDermott, and DeRozan tries to find him, and they turn it over. But I've said before that it doesn't feel like McDermott has had very many games where he shoots well from three when he's getting actual rotational minutes, and it feels like he more shoots well in garbage time of games. And so this was kind of like in between, because it was kind of garbage time at the start, but then he turned it into non-garbage time minutes through his shooting. So it actually was impactful shooting. So I definitely think we could give him another look, especially in lineups like what we saw at the start of the fourth quarter, because it was similar to the lineup that we had at the start of the second quarter. It's the same type of time in the game. And so, yeah, I could see the Kings giving him a shot to be an offensive spark in those moments, because Kevin Huerter, 0 points, a -7, he's just been so awful. And Devin Carter hasn't really been getting too much opportunity, but has struggled in these last few games for sure. But now we move on to 2 games in New York, one against the Knicks, one against the Nets. I'm excited for this Kings-Knicks matchup because it's the matchup of the 2 teams that just play their starters the most minutes. I think the team that wins this game is going to be the one that just plays all their starters 48 minutes. The Knicks are an interesting team because their defense hasn't been good this season, but they have a guy like OG Anunoby. They have a guy in Mikal Bridges, who has been a great defensive role player at one point. They have Josh Hart in their starting lineup, but they have been vulnerable. They don't have Mitchell Robinson. And so I think this is a big game for attacking the rim. I mean, the beauty of the Kings is, yeah, they got OG Anunoby, so he's going to guard someone. I don't know who he's going to guard. Whoever he guards might be kind of out of the game because he's a great defender. But then the Kings have another guy, and it's like, okay, if Mikal Bridges is taking a guy out of the game with his length, then you just go to the next guy. And I think this is the type of game that Malik Monk might be able to thrive in because he might be getting guarded by, I don't know, Josh Hart. And I think the Kings should just attack Karl Anthony Towns in the pick and roll a ton with Malik Monk. I could see it being a very big night for the Monk and Sabonis pick and roll partnership. Defensively, I honestly wouldn't mind seeing Keegan get a shot at guarding Cat and try to bait him into some post-ups because Sabonis is not the greatest when it comes to contesting shooters. And I could see trying to put Sabonis on like a Josh Hart and trying to make Josh Hart prove it from the 3-point line. And then the other thing I'm interested in, does Doug McDermott get minutes? Because I think he earned some minutes, personally. I don't think he got any minutes after he went 6 for his first 6 against Utah from 3. So, I don't know. We'll see. I want him to get some minutes. But anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I'll be back on Saturday to recap the game against the Knicks, so I'll see you guys then. Peace.